As I'm sure you're all aware, currently Europe is experiencing an intense heat wave. How intense? Well, as Blue Sky user Abby Arletto noted, temperatures are significantly higher in France right now than they were portrayed in a fictional forecast for August of 2050, shown in a TV show in 2014 that tried to scare people about the consequences of global warming. Certain areas are experiencing temperatures of 43 Celsius or nearly 110 Fahrenheit, and thousands of people have died from the heat and from drowning trying to find relief from the heat. It's horrific to watch happen and to know that events like this are becoming more and more common thanks to human-caused climate change. But instead of focusing on that, today I want to talk about some actual good news regarding global warming. I know, it's getting harder and harder to find it, but I actually did. And it's going to blow your mind that the heroes of this story are U.S. senators from both sides of the aisle. Seriously. Yeah, I know. So as I've talked about a lot over the past few years, the masterminds behind the second Trump administration have been trying their best to dismantle American scientific research at every level. One of their goals is to pretend that climate change isn't happening, which means destroying all of the research currently being done that involves climate change. One of our greatest tools in this respect is the Ocean Observatories Initiative, or OOI, a network of sensors across the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans that was launched in 2016 to measure physical, chemical, geological, and biological markers from the surface of the sea all the way down to the ocean floor, to give us the most comprehensive look to date on the overall health of our oceans. Not only has this been a boon to researchers, but the OOI also helps fisheries prepare for warming trends, and fishermen know wind and wave conditions before they head out to sea, and meteorologists who are predicting hurricanes and tsunamis. So, obviously, Trump tried to defund it. Twice. He first pulled funding last year, but a bipartisan coalition in Congress immediately restored the funding. Then he tried it again, and again Congress restored it. In May of this year, the Trump administration went a step further, and they announced that they were just going to send out ships to start pulling the sensors out of the water. True to their word, they began pulling these instruments out along the Oregon and Washington coast, managing to grab 6 out of a total of 7 deep-sea platforms before a few senators stepped up. A Democrat, Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon, and a Republican, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, teamed up to pass a measure blocking the administration from removing the rest of the system and demanding the 6 they already got be serviced and returned. Why would a Republican fight to protect science since, the rest of the Republican Party continues to fall further into the anti-science dark ages? Simple, because she would be directly and negatively affected by this particular anti-science action. Alaska runs on fishing. They need accurate ocean, wind, and weather data. That's it. It's that simple. But that was enough. Following the measure's passing, Trump's National Science Foundation announced they were not actually going to proceed with the previously planned removals, and they said, yeah, okay, we will be returning those sensors that they removed. It's hard to believe that there can still be bipartisan action for good these days, but that is how fucking idiotic the Trump administration is. Even some Republicans can tell when they're about to be screwed and act accordingly, at which point I am very much in favor of Democrats working across the aisle. The same goes for Democrat Ro Khanna working with Republican Thomas Massie to harass Trump over the Epstein files. Massie thinks climate change is a liberal hoax because he's an idiot, so fuck him. But Dems should absolutely use him to attack Trump over Epstein. Grist has a great article about the Senate saving the OOI, in which they draw a parallel to another odd coalition. When the Trump administration tried to come after the Energy Star label, which saves consumers about $40 billion each year, they were thwarted by a group consisting of the American Chemistry Council, which also fights against power plant regulations, and the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance, which promotes natural gas in homes. Again, fuck those guys, but absolutely let's use them to keep a program that reduces energy use, saves people money, and pisses off Donald Trump. A true win-win-win. Grist also points out that the restoration of OOI doesn't mean that all of our ocean monitoring systems are safe. Federal funding is due to run out in the next year for systems like OSNAP and RAPID, which I talked about back in 2023 when a bunch of bad science reporting had people thinking that the Gulf Stream was going to collapse in 2025. It wasn't the Gulf Stream, it was the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC, or AMOC. And the research in question stated it was actually unlikely to collapse in 2025. And sure enough, it didn't, though I guess some commenters think it did. But no, sorry. My streak of being right by simply repeating what the experts say continues unbroken. Hello, post-production Rebecca here. While editing this video, I decided I had some extra time, so I wanted to look into why so many people were so confident that AMOC had collapsed in 2025. I got a clue from a few comments that didn't just say it collapsed, but reversed, which is extra weird because all of the research up to that point involved AMOC's continued weakening and when that might lead to a full collapse. A change of direction was, to my admittedly limited knowledge, never discussed. Well, it turns out that these poor souls were fooled by a new bit of misinformation that I completely missed. In July of 2025, a website called IntelliNews announced that Southern Ocean current reverses for first time, signaling risk of climate system collapse. They claimed that a study published on July 2nd of that year found that a portion of the AMOC, the deep western boundary current in the South Atlantic, had reversed course for the first time in recorded history. Already, you can see that this is not, in fact, proof that the AMOC had collapsed or reversed in 2025. But it gets worse. IntelliNews fails to properly cite the study, but they do mention that some Spanish scientists confirmed it. Over at Newsweek, Anna Skinner tried to sort all this out by finding the most likely study that they were referencing, which she thinks is probably this one published the week prior in my favorite journal, PNAS. But that study is about the increased salinity on the surface of the Southern Ocean and has nothing to do with any currents reversing or collapsing. One of the co-authors told Newsweek that a mistranslation led to an incorrect press release that came out of Spain, which was then printed with no clarification by IntelliNews. Another co-author told Newsweek, "We do not talk about DWBC in our recently published work. The AMOC is not collapsing this year." On a side note, Newsweek correctly calls out that IntelliNews didn't cite any of their sources, which makes everything much harder to figure out. But Newsweek also did not cite their sources, which means I've just spent an hour chasing down this particular bit of misinformation just to figure out why a bunch of idiots left ignorant comments crowing on a video I made 2 years ago in which I didn't even say that it was impossible for AMOC to collapse, only that the researchers in that original study said it was unlikely to collapse as early as 2025. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind. Okay. Sorry. Back to the video. That said, that research did find that the AMOC might slow down or fully collapse in the near future because of climate change, and it would be very, very bad for us when it happens. Scientists are still trying to figure out how likely it is that a full collapse will happen, but there is new research suggesting that, yeah, it is slowing down and it is having a negative effect. So it's extremely important for the entire world that we continue to fund these sorts of projects. So we still have to pay attention to make sure the US government doesn't destroy more research. The OOI situation provides a great example of this issue. They were able to remove 6 platforms in just a few weeks, but the New York Times contacted Edward Dever, a professor of oceanography at Oregon State University, who helps manage the instruments off of Oregon and Washington. And he said, "I believe we could have 1 mooring ready to go before the end of the summer and 1 to 2 others ready by fall. Ships are generally scheduled about a year in advance. Scheduling cruises on short notice can sometimes be done, but it is a challenge. Tearing things down is easy. Building them back up is hard." But this situation should give us all some hope. When Congress stood up for science, Trump backed down. As a very wise Republican once said, If it bleeds, we can kill it. So let's do that.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.